time there was an engineer who drove a locomotive both far and near, accompanied by a monkey who would sit on a stool, watching everything the engineer would move. One day the engineer wanted a bite to eat. He left the monkey sitting on the driver's seat. The monkey pulled the throttle, locomotive jumped the gun, and did 90 miles an hour down the main line run.
Here's a lesson to get started. First thing to understand with the guitar are the names of the different parts of the guitar. So naturally we have 6 strings here. This white piece here is called the saddle. It's a piece of plastic or bone that is fitted into a slot in this wooden piece here called the bridge. These are just, I call them the pins. They're like pegs that hold the string in place securely so it goes over the saddle. And this is a nice fixed point for the string. The other fixed point is going to be down here at what we call the nut. It can also be referred to as the 0 fret, because these pieces of wire that go across the fretboard are called frets. And this would be considered fret 1, fret 2, etc., all the way up the fretboard or the fingerboard. So if this is fret 1, this could be considered fret 0. But normally we just refer to it as the nut. And basically how the guitar works is the vibration of the string, the going back and forth, creates a frequency and a vibration that is transferred into the saddle, into the bridge, and to the top of the guitar. This is considered the top. And normally the top of the guitar is a solid, thin piece of wood. Sometimes it's spruce, and it has some bracing underneath. But that's really what's creating the noise. It's the vibration that's transferred to this bridge, which vibrates the top. And then those harmonics and vibrations are kind of bounced around inside the body, and then they come out the sound hole, and that's the sound we hear. So it's not really the noise coming off of the string. It's that vibration that is amplified by this top, and then those sound waves come out of the sound hole. You have the frets. This is, of course, the neck. We said that's the nut. These are just the tuning machines, tuning pegs, whatever you want to call them. Now this guitar has a pickup that's under the saddle, and you would plug in a guitar cable into this jack and plug it into a sound system. There's a compartment for a battery that when that battery dies, then it won't send any sound to out of that cable. But acoustically you can sit here and play, or electrically if you're plugged into a mixing board or a sound system that'll amplify the sound. Okay. Pick guard, okay, that prevents the scratching, too much scratching on the body. I had some scratching here because I tend to sometimes play up here. Then of course you have these dots, and the dots really are just kind of for a quick reference. As you get more experienced, those dots will help you kind of know where you are. If you're not looking down onto the fingerboard to see these dots, the dots are, most of the time, they're normally put into the side so you can see them from the top. Probably the most important fret to know where it is this 12th fret. The 12th fret is generally where you'll see 2 dots, although you'll see 2 dots on this guitar at the 7th fret. Again, just for reference, but on the top it's just 1 dot, 1 dot, 1 dot, 1 dot, and then 2 dots at the 12th. And what the 12th fret is, the 12th fret is the midpoint of this string. From the nut to that saddle. If I measured it, the middle point would be right over the top of this 12th fret. So when you fret that, you are getting the same note as if that was played without fretting it. And when you play a string without fretting it, without pushing it down with your finger, and you just let it ring on its own, that is called playing a string open. Okay, so that's an open string. Now in this case, this is an E note, because I'll get to the names of the strings, or the notes of the strings, but that's an E note. And if I fret it at the 12th, It's the same note. It's just what we call an octave higher. So they sound similar. It's just an octave higher. Now, the notes of the guitar from the fat one, okay, you have an E, you have an A, you have a D, you have a G, you have a B, and you have another E, okay? So you have an E here. I call that the high E, and that's the low E, or the fat E and the skinny E, okay? But they're the same note, all right? There are some phrases you can use to remember the names of the notes. One of them is for E-A-D, it's Eddie ate dynamite. The G-B-E is goodbye Eddie. So it's Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye Eddie. Okay. E-A-D-G-B-E. Okay. And this tuning is called standard tuning. There are other ways to tune the guitar, but most of the time people play songs and play the guitar in standard tuning. That's how you'll learn it. That's how you'll learn all your chords. As you progress, you may want to change the tuning of your guitar, but then of course you'd have to play the chords differently than what you originally learned in standard tuning. But that's standard tuning. Now, to tune the guitar, I tend to use what we call a snark, which is a little screen that you turn on with the push of a button, and you play a note. The note will come up. It'll tell you if it's right on, if it's the right frequency of that E note, or if it's a little bit lower or flatter, or a little bit sharper or higher, just by the lights that are on the tuner. And you can adjust the tuning machine accordingly to get that needle right, normally at the 12 o'clock position. And in this case, I believe there's a greenish blue line that tells me it's right on. It's a little bit over, I think it's yellow, and if it's a little bit flat, it's red. Either way, before you start playing, you should get your guitar in tune. This way, the chords you play or the notes you play will, especially chords, because chords are multiple notes, it'll just sound better. So you get your guitar in tune, and then you're ready to go. Now the two chords I'm going to teach you today are going to be an E minor and an A minor. You can start with any chord that you feel comfortable fingering. When I first stumbled upon these two chords, they were the easiest for me to learn, and they were the easiest for me to go from one to the other. And anytime you play a chord, at first it's very difficult, to figure out which finger goes on what string and what fret. But with an E minor, I want to say it's easy. Of course, it's easy for me at this point, but even in the beginning, when I learned how to finger an E minor, and it sounded pretty cool. And then I learned an A minor, and then I learned how to go from one to the other. Okay, now an E minor, I'll show it on the screen, but you're basically going to be putting, let's number the fingers first of all. Okay, so we're number one. That's going to be your number one finger. That's your index finger. I may refer to it as the one or the index finger. Middle finger, that's your 2. Ring finger has the ring on it, or mine does anyway. And the ring finger is number 3, and the pinky, we'll refer to that as 4. The thumb, sometimes you use your thumb, probably when you get a little bit older, a little more experienced, sometimes you'll put your thumb over to grab that fat string somewhere. We'll just call that T or a thumb. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the fingers that you'll need. So you're going to take your number 2 and your number 3 finger. Well, let's start with the number 2, your middle finger. You're going to put on I'll say the second string or the A string at the 2nd fret. Now, when you're fretting, this is probably the most important thing before you start doing this, is fretting a string it's important where you put that finger. You don't want to put it right on top of the fret, okay? Because what'll happen is it won't really ring true. You'll kind of be muffled by your finger because it's right over that fret. And what you're trying to do, you want to push down on the string, but right behind the fret, because you want that string to kind of come from under your finger and go over that fret, almost like a bridge, and then make a road all the way down here to the saddle and make another bridge over that saddle. Now you have a nice, firm beginning to the string and an end to the string. And nothing's going to prevent it from vibrating and sounding true and ringing that note, vibrating the top, and having the sound come out of that sound hole. Okay, so that's where you want your finger, just behind that fret. Now you don't want it all the way back here, because what happens there is now you're trying to push that string down so it'll fret, or it'll make that bridge over that fret, because that's really what's the most important thing, is that string needs a nice secure starting point, and it's supposed to be right at the fret. Okay, so if I'm way back here, okay, it's not making that nice secure start to the string. So when I move it up further and push down right behind the fret, okay, nice true sound. Okay, nothing's muffling that string, and it'll ring. It rings a pretty long time. All right, so that's probably the most important thing, is making sure that you're fretting it at the right spot along that string, right behind the fret, not on top of it, not in front of it, and not way behind it. So let's look at how to make that E minor. We take that middle finger and we're going to put it on that A string, or the second string, second fret. We're going to take that ring finger, it's in the neighborhood, that's why this is a pretty easy chord. You take your ring finger, or the number 3 finger, you're going to put that on the D string, which is the third string, from the top going down, on the second fret. So you're going to put it right next to it. Now, the other important thing is that you see my fingers are going down onto, straight down onto the fingerboard. They're not, flat like that, because now all this meat from my fingers touching all these other strings, and it's going to keep them from making noise. So you want to kind of turn your hand under a little bit so that these fingers that you're using to fret are sort of coming straight down, or almost straight down, where your fingertips are pretty close to, right behind that fret, and they're pushing down hard. Now what's going to happen, especially in the beginning, is you're going to get little indentations on your fingertips. But for these two chords, that's kind of good, because you're going to see the A minor is we're going to kind of be moving these two strings just down, a string each, and they're going to almost fit into that little groove that we've worked into our finger. Now at first, your fingers may be sore after you get done playing, but eventually they'll get a little more, some calluses build up, and the skin will become a little harder. But at first, it'll be a little bit hard on your fingers. You really can't play too long before it hurts. But again, let's get our fingers in that spot. Let's make sure our thumb's not in the way of that fat E string. Make sure our hand here, or this finger, isn't touching any of the other strings. That's just these two fretting fingers, the 2 and the 3 are fretting those two strings at the second fret. Let's just see how it sounds by plucking each string and making sure we can hear each note. That includes the open strings, okay, which are the strings we're not fretting, and the fretted strings. They should all sound true, okay, meaning they should all ring without a buzz, without sounding like they're muffled. Let's try it. So let's go right from the top, from the fat E string, and we'll just go right down one at a time. And then we'll strum them all gently. Okay, that sounds pretty good. I can hear all the strings. Okay, so I got that E minor down. Now, I've been holding that pretty long, and for you, at first, it's going to be a little painful. So take a break. Get your fingers loose, then try it again. Get them in that spot. Get them all ringing true. And then we can talk about strumming. Now, in other lessons, we'll talk about different strum patterns. What we're going to try to do in this the strum pattern we're going to do here, we're going to do, okay? Now, it sounded a little complicated at first, but it's just down, 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 up, down, 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 So it's just down, 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 up, down. Or you can just strum it one time and count to 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this will prove to you that you're fretting all the strings and they're all ringing clearly. Okay, so strum either way, down, 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 up, down. Okay, so that's 3 downs and then an up, down. So it's down, down, up, down. Okay, there's other strum patterns, and as you play more and more, you'll kind of get your own feel for a song or whatever. But we can start with that, or again, you can just 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just count to 4 and do it on the 1. We're going to switch from an E minor to an A minor. This is pretty advanced. Normally on your first lesson, you're just learning one chord because you're trying to get your fingers to do what you're doing. And if you just do one chord for this lesson, that's fine. But if you want to try to go from an E minor to an A minor, it's a pretty easy switch. It may not seem easy at first, but you'll get it. And these were 2 chords I played over and over once I got the hang of switching from one to the other. And then I could get it in time. I could do my strumming, and I was like, from there I just took off. I'm like, oh, give me another chord to try. But these 2 chords are pretty close to each other. So basically, with the A minor, you're going to take that E minor shape, okay, that 2 and that 3 finger. Remember. Or I'll just give you a hint. This number 1 finger, he's getting lonely. He wants something to do, and he's going to do something in this A minor. Okay, just give you a heads up. So these 2 fingers, okay, for that E minor, are going to remain on that 2nd fret, okay, but they're going to they're going to move on to a different string, each of them. They're going to kind of move together downward, where now the ring finger, okay, number 2, is going to be on the D string. Remember? Eddie 8 Dynamite. Okay, so it's that 3rd string. The ring finger is going to be on the D string. And the ring finger, or the middle finger, the middle finger is going to be on the D string. The ring finger now has stayed on that 2nd fret, but dropped down a string to the G string, or the 4th string down. Okay? But we're not ready to play the A minor. We have to get this guy working. And where the index finger is going to fall is going to be on the B string, or that 2nd string on the 1st fret. So it's almost there. It's kind of just lonely playing the E minor because it's not doing anything. But we know that now we're going to an A minor. This finger's all excited. It wants to go right down on that B string on that 2nd fret. Whoops, that was the 3rd fret. On the 2nd string, 1st fret. I want to confuse you. Okay, so again, going from the E minor, we're taking those 2, we're dropping them down 1, and then we're bringing that index finger, or the 1 pointer finger, onto the B string 1st fret, and we're going to pluck each string, one at a time. They all sound true. I must have it. And again, if things are muffled, you may have your hand kind of turned back, all right, and your fingers are touching other strings. So you want to kind of turn your hand under, show your knuckles to who you're playing for. And now the fingers are kind of going straight down. The fingertips are going straight down onto the string right behind the fret that they're supposed to be on. All right? Okay. Sounds clean. Let's start strumming. Remember, we'll go down 3 times, then up, down. So it's down, 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 up, down. Okay? Let's try to remember, go back to the E minor. And basically, we're just taking those 2 that are now like brothers and putting them on the 2nd fret on the A and D string. That all sounds good, so let's strum again. A minor, let's move the two brothers down one set of strings. Drop in the index finger on the second string or the B string, first fret. Okay, and let's go back to the E minor. Let's go to the A minor. Let's go to the E minor. One more time to the A minor. And end on the E minor. So there are the two chords. That's the change you should work on. And what's going to happen, it may not be that smooth very quickly, but your fingers will remember where to go. Again, you'll kind of try to twist your hand under a little bit so your fingers are coming straight down rather than like that where they're muffling all the other strings and the chord doesn't sound clean. So that's sort of the secret there, is just turning under, and then work on getting those two chords going back and forth and getting that muscle memory. Once you get that, things will go faster because you'll learn another chord. And then since maybe you know the A minor, maybe you'll play an A minor and then a D, then an A minor and a D. And you'll just go back and forth. And your fingers will slowly learn, where to go. We call it muscle memory. And then you just add more and more chords to your vocabulary. That's it. Again, last thing, let's remember what the notes on the guitar are. From the top: E, Eddie; 8, Dynamite; Good, by Eddie. E, A, D, G, B, E. Okay, that's it for now.
With a worried mind,